and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. In honor of National Infertility Week, I'm releasing this additional podcast episode today. I'm talking with Tiffany, who lives with endometriosis and has gone through fertility struggles, including fertility treatments such as IUI and IVF due to this condition. She was a nurse for 18 years, and she now helps women find more natural and holistic ways to deal with reproductive conditions such as endometriosis, PCOS, and fibroids. She hopes by sharing her story, it will help others know they aren't alone in dealing with conditions like endometriosis. Hello, everyone. Today I am here with Tiffany. Tiffany, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. Well, my name is Tiffany, as she stated. I am a nurse of almost 18 years, and I also live with endometriosis, and I've had some fertility challenges as well. So, right now, what I do is I help women living with endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, and other reproductive conditions heal their bodies without toxic hormones or expensive or painful treatments, as we all know, or most of us may know what those are, while preserving their fertility, if conceiving is something that they would like to do. But the main part is just really healing and finding balance and relief from some of the conditions that we see with the reproductive health of women.
And I love that you're doing that because there's definitely, I think, not enough focus on helping people going through fertility struggles.
Exactly. I went through it, IUI and both IVF, and I just found that there was a focus on getting me pregnant, the positive pregnancy test, but no one thought about why are you having the issue? What may be preventing? So I feel like you have to kind of fix the root of the issue instead of just covering it up or masking it. For some people that works, but after I did IVF, my endometriosis went bonkers and it was the worst experience for me. So I like to always give people hope that, there are other ways if IVF is not an option for you. So, whether it's financially or physically or whatever the case may be.
So, how were you diagnosed with endometriosis?
So I was diagnosed at age 16. I'm one of the lucky ones because I know some people, it takes them a very long time to get a diagnosis. Um, as some of you may know, you have to get a diagnosis of endometriosis from surgery. That's really the only standard that they accept for diagnosis. So I developed pain in my right side. I passed out, was taken to the hospital. They thought it was my appendix. And the same day I had surgery, they actually referred me to an OBGYN and said, like, just go straight there. Don't go home. Just go straight there. And I had surgery the same day. And they removed my left ovary the same day. So the pain was on the right, but it was actually the left.
Oh, wow. That's
So
a
for
lot to happen, especially at 16.
and you don't really understand, like you're just really kind of sort of understanding like your period and all of these things. And then you have this happen and, you're on birth control for like, I was on birth control for like the next 20 years. Not really even understanding, what the effects were, both short term and long term. So that was a whole learning curve. Like I didn't realize the beast that endometriosis is until I got married and came off birth control and tried to conceive. And that's when I realized that birth control doesn't stop anything from I can't speak for the other conditions, but specifically for endo, it doesn't stop it from growing. It really just stops your symptoms or kind of lessens your symptoms if you're lucky. And that's what it did for me. So I'm like living life like, oh yeah, I have endometriosis, but it like I almost forgot that I had it. And then, like I said, once I came off of it, and that's where really my journey began.
Do you
Um,
feel like there's enough information out there about endometriosis in general? Like, had you even heard of it before you were diagnosed?
the crazy part is there's not enough information at all. I think doctors at some of them at no fault of their own, they're given a small sample of they're given a small course on all of reproductive health, let alone, endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS, and all of those things. And they're complex conditions. And so I think it's more of the preparation that needs to happen, more awareness. And then for me, I did not learn that my mom had it, my aunt had it, my maternal grandmother. I didn't learn that until 2 years ago. So the conversations between families that need to happen, like my mom had a hysterectomy very early on. I think I may have been 10 when she had a hysterectomy. So that conversation didn't happen as to why, what's going on, So for me, I just knew what happened, but I didn't know why.
Mhm.
So in families, particularly families of color, and I can speak for, families in the Black community, we need to have more conversations around reproductive health. People think, oh, it's so taboo. We don't talk about this, we don't talk about that, but people are really suffering because they don't know their history. They think they're all alone. When you go through something like that, you feel like you're alone, whether it's loss, fertility challenges, a condition, you really do feel isolated, but you don't have to feel that way. And so I'm on a mission to um, use my story and be an example. I used to be very hush hush about it. I didn't want people to know. I was embarrassed. And so I really want to change the narrative and how people approach and how they think and feel about their conditions, and just, not necessarily wear it as a badge of honor, but yeah, I have this, and this is what happens during A, B, and C, and this is how you can help me through that, because some people want to help, but they don't know how. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't have endometriosis, but I have PCOS, which is,
mhm.
a whole other fun
Yes,
condition. And yeah, like you said, it's one of those things, like it's almost like we feel shame for having it, but
absolutely.
it's not, it's not, obviously it's not something we ever wanted to have.
Right, right. Um, yeah, and finding hope after loss. The name of your podcast is so profound. And the first thing is the loss. Um, I think when people think about loss as far as reproductive health goes, they think of, oh, you lost a baby, or you lost, whether it's stillborn or whether you had the child and then there was a loss. But there's also loss from not being able to, or not have ever been pregnant. That's also loss. Or if someone tells you, hey, you'll never be able to have kids, or hey, the only relief you'll find from said condition is a hysterectomy.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's also loss. So it's all loss.
Yes,
And then,
definitely.
it's all loss. And then, the hope. Um, I want people to know that hope comes in different forms. It looks different ways for different people. So, like, my hope is not necessarily to become a mom or to have my own child, but my hope is the fact that I have found so much happiness and joy and peace in finding my purpose, and that can be your hope after loss. And to let people know there are more ways than one to become a mom or a parent, or whatever your role is. There are so many other ways to do that, versus other than physically carrying. And so that's another thing that I want to really put out there and make people aware of. Yeah, so it's I wouldn't say an uphill battle, but it's definitely a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of just people that spread information and it's just incorrect, whether it's just ignorance or whether it's intentional. So, and just really connect communities of women. So, like, you have PCOS and I have endometriosis, and there are so many things in common that we go through and that we share. And so instead of being compartmentalized and segmented, like maybe just bridge the community so that we all, have even more support from each other.
Yes, I definitely agree. I mean, even if it's not, 100% the same condition or same experience, like we have similar feelings and similar experiences.
Yes, indeed.
So I know that with endometriosis in particular, I know that, one of the things that can come with that is the really painful periods.
Mm.
And I've also heard from a lot of people that doctors can be dismissive of that pain. Is that something that you've ever had to deal with?
Oh, yes. So I will say I've only had two doctors over the span of my GYN experiences that were incredibly dismissive. Um, but in the moment, it doesn't matter whether it was 2 or 20.
Mhm.
It still puts you in a place of, okay, well, am I imagining this? Am I overreacting? Am I, because they'll tell you it's all in your head, or it's not that bad, or they'll believe you and support you, but not necessarily give you enough resources. So the support would look like, and I'm talking about when I say this, I mean practitioners in the traditional medicine realm, the traditional healthcare realm. They'll throw medications at you. So it was, narcotics, narcotics, narcotics. Those make me feel like crap. I have to get up and go to work. I had a family. So that did not work for me. For some people, that's all they have. And so that's one. And the dismissal, listen, my advice is if you don't feel heard by your physician, I say date your doctor. So if you don't get what you want from one, find someone else. Because there is no reason for any of us to ever feel like we are all alone or that we can't get what we need from the very people who say they're here to help us.
Yes. I think we forget sometimes that we're allowed to switch doctors.
Yes. Yes.
We think we're kind of, stuck with one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember
Absolutely.
I had an episode that just came out on the podcast, and yeah, she went to 13 different doctors with
Mm-hmm.
endometriosis, and they are all like, "Oh no, it's not going to affect your fertility," all of this, and they were all women. The one that finally listened to her was a male doctor, and when they went in to do surgery, she had stage 4
Yep.
endometriosis, but nobody would listen.
Mm-hmm. That, like I said, when you share these stories, it's just like, oh yeah, I remember because I went through the exact same thing. It's yeah, the the dismissal. I really want people to, like you said, understand you don't have to stick with the same physician at all. I'm also on a mission to let people know of the different holistic methods that you can, because I label myself as a holistic nurse now. So the methods that you can use outside of what we call, and I'm doing air quotes, traditional medicine or Western medicine, there are so many other things that you can do. There's acupuncture, there's Chinese herbal medicine, and those two together, that's how I got my life back. There's also diet modification, there's also lifestyle. And so, I mean, movement. I try not to use exercise, but just encourage movement. And there's different types of movement. There's dance, there's yoga, um, stretching, walking, there's so many things that you can do. But I think castor oil packs, the main thing for me, and I did all of those that I just named, and it became a lifestyle for me. For some people, it's a little bit easier than others, but that's why I'm here. I feel like certain practitioners, even if they don't know what the issue is, they don't want to say they don't know.
Right.
And to any practitioners that are listening, um, that deal with women in any sort of OBGYN, in any space, if you don't know, that's okay. I think some people look at doctors and expect them to have all the answers, and sometimes they don't, and that's okay too. It's okay to say, you know what, I don't know, but let me find out, or I don't know, but let me refer you
Hmm.
to to
That's
to this
pointing you
person.
in the right direction, even. That's better than just
Yes.
dismissing you.
Absolutely. And so building those relationships with the physicians who are in those spaces saying, hey, if you do have a client that's having these symptoms, number one, don't dismiss them. Number two, do your due diligence to diagnose. Um, I will say endo is probably one of the hardest to diagnose because for quote unquote insurance purposes, it has to be diagnosed through a surgical procedure. So that in itself is a whole other layer of complexity. But just having the resources or letting the physicians know that, hey, if you don't know, or if your client says they're having this, let's try to at least improve their symptoms, because even if you can't improve the condition itself, I have stage 4 myself, and I do want to clarify that just because you have stage 4 doesn't mean that you'll feel worse than someone with stage 1. The stages just mean how widespread it is.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. So,
Okay. So yeah, so like stage 1 just means like minimal lesions, and then stage 4 is just like it's like Spider-Man went in and just kind of webbed everything. You've got like these little lesions everywhere. And then endometriosis travels. So it up until I have to check my research, but up until 2013 or 2014, it had been found on every major organ except for the spleen. So that's
wow.
brain, heart, liver, lungs, kidneys, everything. I had some on my kidney, bladder, rectum. So all of those symptoms that you get every month is because those lesions are actually, when you're menstruating, they're actually menstruating, and that's what causes pain, widespread pain. And inflammation, if I can say one thing that people can look into, as far as, and I think most conditions, even outside of this, if you talk about cancer and heart disease, inflammation, get a handle on your inflammation. And also, stress causes inflammation, and whether it's good stress or not so good stress, we live in a society where it's go, 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 get this done, get that done. You don't really prioritize yourself. And so it's so important to be able to take the time for yourself, even if it's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to just deep breathe and recenter. That does so much for your nervous system. It does so much for your overall well-being. So take the time for you. We all wear so many different hats. I think the one of the most important and the busiest hats would be mom, or when you just have someone who depends on you for care, you often find yourself giving and pouring into them and forgetting about yourself. Or whether it's, your spouse, a mom, a sister, a friend, whatever it is, most of us, we're nurturers by nature. And so we're going to take care of other people. And for me, if I'm taking care of everybody else, then I'm okay. But there's only so long that you can pour from a cup, and then it's empty.
I'm definitely guilty
Who's
of that as well.
who's refilling your cup? And that responsibility falls on no one else. No one else has to refill your cup. That's up to us to refill our own. And I don't think I realized that until maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah, I've been
So,
kind of realizing it in more so in the last like year or two where I'm like,
mhm.
wow, I have just been like totally neglecting myself.
Yes, 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 yes.
And I'm like,
And
and I'm tired.
you're like, why am I so tired? And it's just like, not only am I doing things, but it's almost like driving your car but never putting gas in it.
Right. Yeah. And
Mhm.
and doing something like you said, just taking, a few minutes to breathe and, it
Mhm.
sounds so simple, but it's so effective.
It definitely is. It definitely is. It's helped me in so many ways. I got COVID in 2020. It took me 15 months to recover, and COVID is nothing but like it inflames your body to levels that you wouldn't believe. And so that did not help endo. So it's like they were kind of in there having a tea party. No,
Oh,
it was a
no.
rave, actually. Like it was just a massive party, and I felt horrible. I felt horrible. And so I was just like, no, I have to take my power back. I have to focus on me and I have to make sure I'm okay before I can take care of anybody else. Because if I'm no good, then the people that I'm caring for are going to feel that. And I'm not going to be able to care for them and love them and show up for them in the ways that I want to.
Right. Yeah,
Hmm.
I never even thought about, things like endometriosis and COVID interacting.
Hmm. I
So
had to have surgery during COVID because it was, yeah, it was bad.
that sounds miserable.
It was.
Oh, COVID, that's something I wish would go away, but I don't think it ever will.
Oh, goodness.
So, what are some ways? I know you've talked about it a little bit, but what are some ways to help reduce inflammation?
Okay, so there are diet is one. So there are I don't diet. I like prefer lifestyle. I tell people I don't condone one thing over another. So whatever works for you, I follow the blood type diet for myself. That's what works. Some people go vegan and find relief from that. Some people cut out a certain thing. I will just say I think the most important part is to know what the inflammatory foods are. Number one, sugar, followed by gluten and dairy.
All the
So
good
if you
food?
all the good, right, all the good stuff. Luckily for us, there are lots of alternatives, especially gluten-free. I don't buy gluten for my home. Do I eat it? Yes. I do, but I pick my battles. Pizza is like my favorite food, and that's gluten and dairy.
Mm, that sounds
So
delicious.
a good New York style pizza is
Mhm.
oh, it's my favorite. But I I I have it in moderation. So I learned to make my own with a gluten-free crust or a cauliflower crust at home. Not only is it healthy for you, but it can taste really, really good if you, you know, figure out what works for you. It's a lot of experimenting, but like I said, once you start to do it and you feel the changes, that's when it sticks. I think people do things and they don't feel anything, so that's discouraging. But keep trying things. And as far as inflammation, so movement is really good. Acupuncture, I cannot say enough about acupuncture.
I love acupuncture.
And if you don't like needles, try acupressure, try reflexology. Those are great alternatives to acupuncture. I am also a certified Reiki practitioner, and so I do Reiki on a lot of my clients, and they find that center and that balance. I also make my own therapeutic products, and so like I have a bath soak. It could be a foot soak as well, and that's really good for detox and decreasing stress. Also making oil, and everything is made with organic oils and essential oils. So like jojoba, shea butter, those things like that. So they're really going to help you. If you have one of the conditions that's driven by hormones, which is most of them, fibroids, PCOS, endo, adeno, um, watch what you put on your body. We focus on what we take in, and that's great, but focus on also on what you put on your body. Some of the cosmetics, the lotions, they have what we call xenoestrogens in them, and they mimic estrogen in the body. And so if you have an estrogen dominant condition, then those conditions are going to be worsened if you use particular products. And so I really had to go clean with the products that I use. So now I only use like shea butter that is made, I really make my own, but I will buy from other trusted brands. So, think about those things when you are redoing your approach to whichever condition that you're trying to find relief from. Um, let's see, diet, movement. The movement part, like I said, it does not have to be kickboxing or, insanity or whatever, the popular programs are. Your movement could simply be taking a walk. Your movement, or if it's your therapy for the day, meditation, breathing, breath work, sound bowls, um, any of those things, dance therapy. Put together a playlist, pull up, your Google, Apple Music, your Spotify, whatever, and just pick a few songs. If you pick 4 to 5 songs and you just with each song just dance it out or move it out, that's 20 minutes.
And
That
it's
makes
fun.
and it's fun, right? And that makes a huge difference. And so I do like to work out for, how I look physically, but it's how I feel. That's what drives me to work out. The feeling, like how I feel. I know when I haven't worked out, I feel sluggish. I feel like I just do not feel good.
Mhm.
So that's the other thing. And then, finding a trusted practitioner. Don't be afraid of they call it alternative therapies, but these therapies have been used for thousands of years and they have worked. I actually also do vaginal steaming. I do that on my own and for others. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. There's been mixed reviews on it, but I can tell you firsthand, I have seen the miracles not only with myself, but with other clients and other people. And it does wonders. And even if you're not, you could do this, young girls could do it. Even pre-menarche. So when young girls who have not had their periods yet can steam. Women who are menopausal can steam. And so it's not only good physically, but the experience, if you have a really good practitioner, the experience itself is both a emotional and sometimes spiritual release as well.
So what are supposed to be the benefits of that?
So it's basically, so if you don't know what steaming is, it's basically you sit over a pot of herbs that have been steeping in hot water. And so you have the different herbs. So there's lavender, there's you can do mint, but only a small amount. But the herbs are really, really good for decreasing inflammation and specifically in that area because it's going directly to the source. So
Mhm.
I could tell you to take turmeric, it has to go through the whole body, but with steaming, it's going directly to the source. So decreasing inflammation, helping with pain, lessening menstrual cramping. It can also help with bleeding. So if you're a really heavy bleeder, it can really help with lightening your periods. And some people have seen a decrease in the length of their period. So if they were 7 days, and believe it or not, some people have a 14-day period that is not normal.
Wow,
What
yeah.
I'd like to also say, what is not normal is cramps. You have, oh, you got Midol, you've got this. Those aren't normal. They are not normal. Clots are not normal. When you bleed, it's just supposed to be like, oh, okay. Those aren't normal. So it can help with those things. So shortening the period, but still having a healthy cycle. Because your cycle is the whole thing, but your period is just when you bleed. So it can really improve your menstrual health all over. I should say your overall menstrual health as well.
It's so interesting that, things like cramps and stuff are not normal, but yet they're normal, like
Right. They're
according to, what we've
normalized.
been taught.
Yes, they're normalized, but they're not normal. Right.
Like as women, again, we're just told, suck it up, you'll be okay.
It's culture, because if you study other cultures or you observe other cultures, the approach around menstrual health is different. In a lot of cultures, when girls get their periods, they're celebrated. They have like rites of passage, they have ceremonies, they have parties, they have these things. And here it's almost like when you get your periods, it's like, oh goodness, like a burden.
Mm.
And I think starting young women off with that mindset is where we go wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we could start it out, it's not something that's always pleasant to deal with, but like,
Right.
it doesn't have to be like this horrible thing that's happening to you.
Absolutely. And nobody wants to talk about it. I mean, I'm sorry, it happens. And if the world continues, it's something that has to happen in order for, it's something that has to happen. So I don't understand why, as women, we're kind of expected to just kind of go in a room, close the door for however many days, and then reemerge all refreshed and renewed after it's over. People don't want to see tampon commercials. People don't want to talk about it. And I encourage men, or however, partners, if it's something that you don't experience, ask questions. And ladies, if guys are asking questions, let's not bite their heads off. If they're showing interest, let's invite them in and show them as much as they can handle in one sitting. I know it's a lot, and I know some of it is a little bit too deep for them to understand, too much graphically for them to stomach, but I encourage it. I encourage it. So if someone wants to know, tell them, especially, when people ask, what is endometriosis? Or I'll be the first person to say, oh, well, I have endo and this is what it is. I'll just bring it up, whether you want to hear it or not.
Right. Like when you're going to.
Yes, because I'm like, I have an obligation to tell people, because you may have a partner, a sister, a friend, or another family member that's going through the same thing. And they may not know that their really bad periods could be something else. So you may be the person to say, hey, you might want to investigate this a little bit further. So, the person who opens your eyes to the fact that it's not all in your head and there is something that should be done and can be done may be someone of the opposite sex. And so that's why I don't limit my awareness and teaching and educating to just women. My services are for those who have reproductive organ, were born with reproductive organs and go through certain things. But all of my other services are open, because it's going to take all of us together, because you have male physicians.
Right. I think that's really important. And something we often don't think about is that we need to include them in, because I think, sometimes we think, oh, they don't need to hear about all that.
Mhm.
But they do. Because
Right.
how else will we, you know, get the word out, get more people to understand and, create the new generation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I know also that you mentioned that you were a nurse. Do you feel like that has influenced your journey and what you do now?
Absolutely. Working as a nurse, I was able to see it. Um, and then having endo, I was able to live it. So I've been in both spaces. And I think one of the hardest things for me was to see how I contributed to the negative mindset sometimes. So I remember a few patients coming into the ER because they had really bad periods. They would come in saying, I'm having cramps. And I remember my colleagues, and I've said it on certain occasions, it's just cramps. Why are you here? That's because I was in that space where I was on birth control, so I didn't really understand the beast that endo or adeno or fibroids or even PCOS, I didn't understand.
Right.
And so once I realized that I can, and this was like in hindsight, I realized that I contributed to it, then I'm like, okay, well, I can't take back, I can't go back in time, but what I can do is change my mindset and how I move forward. And so both my experience as a nurse and a patient drive me um in my current purpose. And so I love being a nurse. I it is my passion. Um but it's also most of us are nurses in a broken system. The system is not working. And so a lot of us feel we don't get the care that we need. We don't get the attention that we need or the support. So knowing that, it's like, well, let me approach it and come at it from a different angle. So I'll leave, kind of take a step back from traditional. And when people realize, you know what, I'm going to seek other options, I'm standing in the doorway, open arms, like, okay, come, I've got you. So that's kind of how I approach it. And I also educate, I have friends. I've been a nurse for a very long time. So I have friends that are still nurses, and physicians. So I educate them any chance that I get. Well, if someone comes in, don't just dismiss it, at least give them a referral for a GYN. If they choose to follow up, then that's on them, but at least make the referral. Don't just say it's cramped, here's some medicine. And, don't just what we call in the ER, treat them and treat them. Don't do that.
Right.
Give them some sort of resources that they can at least follow up with. And then after that, the choice is on them.
And it makes them feel heard too, like they're not just being ignored.
That is that's huge. Just the fact that you feel heard. I remember the first time that I felt that with a doctor, and I cried right there in the office. And I know there are so many other people with the same story, that when you finally get that one person who listens to you, it's kind of like a release, like a weight is lifted off your shoulder.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, sad to me that those doctors are sometimes so hard to find. Like
Yeah.
that should be the standard. That shouldn't be you
Mhm.
have to go searching through doctors to find one that makes you feel heard and valued.
Right. Or we have to put together Facebook groups, with resources for different types of providers and specialists, that to me, it says a lot. But I'm glad that we are where we are. There's still lots of work to be done, but I don't want to discount the moves and the progress that have been made. So, yeah, we've made a lot of progress, and I'm really happy about that. There's still more to do, a lot more to do, but I'm also excited about, now people are more open about it, and more people know about it. There's still a lot that people don't know. Um, and now we're looking at research. We're looking at research and policy, changing policy to help, laws and different things that can support women who need the support, whether it's being off of work or, the protections of your job, or, getting certain procedures covered. So, there's when you I'll use PCOS as an example. There's lots of lab work that has to go along with that, not just the diagnosis, but the like just following a patient with PCOS. There's a lot of lab work that happens, and insurance companies are at the liberty to say, no, we're not going to cover that at whatever point.
Mm.
And I'm not sure if you've experienced that or not, but I
I
know
have.
people have, and that why? I just don't understand why that's even an option in this day and age, in the quote unquote best healthcare system in the world.
I
That
remember
that blows
before,
my mind.
yeah, before the new healthcare or the Obamacare system and all of that, when insurance could still do the pre-existing conditions,
Whew.
I got I had to get dropped from my husband's insurance because the price just went up too much. And then so I was trying to get insurance on my own. And yeah, I got denied because of the PCOS being a pre-existing condition. And I'm
Yep. I just went through that maybe a month ago. I was shopping on the marketplace, and a lot of these private marketplaces, while they're a little bit cheaper, um, they get to say, no, we're not going to cover that. And as soon as I mentioned endometriosis, or as soon as they pulled up my file and saw, wait a minute, you've had this prescribed for you, why? And then I had to explain, they were like, okay, well, we're not able to cover you at this time.
And that's ridiculous. Yeah, mine, it was the PCOS and the infertility. And I'm like, but you
Mhm.
don't cover infertility treatment anyway. So how
So
can you
why
deny
is that
me for it?
oh my goodness, that's exactly what happened to me too. Like, I'm not asking you to cover that. Just cover my wellness exams, please. That's all I'm asking. But yeah, it's insane to me. It
Well,
really
and I'm like, blood work, really? Like that's not like it's that expensive to,
it's
and
not.
it's not like invasive. I'm not getting some kind of surgery or, like yeah, I agree. It's just ridiculous. That's all I can say about it.
I also do functional medicine, blood work analysis. So I basically can order, routine labs, some complex labs, and it's a fraction of the cost, but the way that I look at it is from a different lens than what your traditional doctors would do. So I started with my own lab work. I looked at it and, everything was green. Oh, everything looks great. Everything looks great. This is to no fault of my doctors at all. This is just training. And then I took it and looked at it from a functional medicine standpoint, from what I've been, taught from my training. And my inflammation is crazy off the charts. And so this was back in September. And so I made it a mission to, figure out what I could do to bring myself back into balance and decrease that inflammation. And it's working. And so if you don't get what you need from a, traditional practitioner, and sometimes you may ask for lab work, or you may read or do your own research, because Google is sometimes not the best when looking up things. But if you have a specific condition and you're looking for answers, Google can be a great place to find remedies, or next steps to talk about with your physician. And if you don't get that, maybe seek out either a naturopath or a functional medicine practitioner, because we look at things from a different lens.
And I think that's an important thing to note because, there are those like standard ranges or whatever, but
Mhm.
sometimes that's not, that doesn't mean that it's okay for the condition you have.
Thank you. And, I learned this with my functional medicine studies. Those ranges, those aren't ranges because they've actually done research to say, okay, well, outside of this range, the body acts this way. Those ranges are an average based on location, based on geographic location. That's what those
That doesn't
averages
make
are.
sense.
That's what those averages are. So that's mind blowing in itself. Because again, I went to nursing school, and so I know, backwards and forwards, all the ranges. And then I started functional medicine, and I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, because you think that, I mean, you would think having those numbers that they would be like
Mhm.
scientifically studied and, backed up and like there'd be a reason for them, not just some arbitrary based on where you live. Like that doesn't make sense.
Unfortunately, no.
See
So,
that we just,
yeah.
I'm not saying anything like the medical system has a lot of good things to it too, but we
Absolutely.
can't just blindly
Absolutely.
trust.
Right. I feel like start there, because that's where you're going to have, access to the most things, especially, different imaging and all that good stuff. And listen, there are some practitioners out here that are really rocking it, and they are really doing an amazing job, and they are really allies for all of us who are dealing with any type of reproductive condition. So to them and to all of the support people, the people that support us, I huge, huge, huge thank you. Um, I just want to offer up, if you're not finding what you need, there are other avenues. And I like to work with doctors. So, okay, if this is your plan, let me introduce you to castor oil packs. Let's do steaming. Let's do pelvic floor therapy is another one that's a really good therapy. Let's do these things in conjunction too. When you do IVF, acupuncture is amazing in helping to increase your chances. And that's been studied. So if you're doing IVF or thinking of doing IVF, think about think about acupuncture, thinking about Chinese herbal medicine, think about getting the inflammation down. Take care of you. It's almost like you're tilling the soil. It's almost like planting a seed in soil that's dry and has no nutrients or something. You want to make sure that the soil is as nutrient enriched as possible, and the soil is you. And I don't just mean physically, I mean emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all of those. It's all connected.
And I wish so badly that, all of these things were taught to you by fertility doctors too, so that you're not, so that, because it's expensive. So like when you're doing
Mhm.
it, like you want to, like you said, be prepared for it and,
Right.
not like quote, waste a cycle.
Right. In my experience, the goal was positive pregnancy test. What happens after that is, you know, on you
Mm.
per
Yeah.
se, but that's just my experience. I do know that there are several others that have had the same experience. So,
I mean, yeah, that's their job, right? Get you pregnant
get you
as fast
pregnant.
as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which I mean, it's good. That's what we want, but
Right, right, right.
so do you have anything else that you would like to share or add?
Um, yeah, just you are your own advocate. So if you don't feel like something's right, go with your gut. Intuition is powerful. And just know that you're powerful. Um, and whatever answers you need or whatever answers you seek, don't be afraid to get those answers. Whether it is a, healthcare professional that you already have. If you don't have anyone, there are different Facebook groups, there are different forums that you can look into as well. If you would like any of my services, go to channelingchi.com. I'm sure we'll have like a link or something in the show notes, but I am always open to helping people and bringing people along because I'm on a journey as well. So anything that I recommend, anything that I say, or anything that comes up, it's because I've experienced it myself. So I'm not just going through it, I'm not just telling you what to do, I'm going through it with you. So
And
we're
I think
all in
that's the
this
best way
together.
is when you've, gone through experience.
We are all in this together. So yeah.
So I know you already mentioned, is that the best way to connect with you? Are there other ways to connect with you?
Sure. You can follow at channeling_chi on Instagram. You can also follow at Tiffnaz, TIFN as in Nancy AZ. One is my personal, one is, the business, but I usually post the exact same thing on both. And you can also follow Tiffany Davis on Facebook as well.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story and all your great information with us.
Thank you. And thank you so much for this space. It is so needed. So thank you for what you're doing as well.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, for sharing your story and all your helpful information with us. It just frustrates me so much that, just like Tiffany said, doctors so often try to just find an easy fix for a problem without really understanding what is causing it. For instance, I have PCOS and I was just immediately put on birth control, which is the exact opposite of what really should have been done. I was taught nothing about diet or exercise or what further health complications I could have because of PCOS. I was essentially told nothing. Here's some birth control. Come back when you want to get pregnant. And unfortunately, I hear the same types of stories from so many other women with PCOS, endometriosis, and with other reproductive conditions. How many people with endometriosis who have painful periods have been told it's just what women have to deal with? How many people with PCOS have been told to just lose weight because then all your problems will be solved? And how many countless others have just been dismissed or their concerns not taken seriously? This just adds to the frustration of infertility. Yes, many of us do want to get pregnant, but we also want to be in control of our health and our bodies, and we don't want to deal with the further implications of these reproductive conditions. Again, we are left educating ourselves through things like Google and listening to stories of other women instead of getting the information we need from our medical doctors. So I just want to leave this episode by saying, don't be afraid to ask questions or to do your own research. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself or even to try natural methods of healing. We have to take control of our own health journey, or else we may not get the care that we deserve. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more lost and infertility families. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.